Hello guys, I hope you're all well. Welcome to Sniper Sundays. I hope you've all had a great weekend. A busy week coming up for us this week in the community. As explained last week, we do have an educational webinar tomorrow where we're going to be talking through a trading plan, the things that you need to be looking at, and a sort of checklist to run over as you're analysing and preparing to take a trade. Also be showing you the trading log, and yeah, then as I said, next week we're going to hold each week. What we'll do is we'll hold a live morning or evening call. Sometimes it can be quiet at the start of the week. There may be quiet days, or it may be a busy week, whatever the circumstances may be. But what we can do is we'll alternate it. We'll have an early morning call. We'll have a morning call where we jump on and actually do it live, so the market will be moving. We'll see if there's any setups in the London session, and yeah, we'll be looking at the charts live, and then also we'll do an evening call live as well, where we're sort of reviewing the day's action. We may be in the trade, we may be looking at taking trade, but we'll jump into some live morning and evening calls. So we're going to schedule one of those in for next week, probably the later part of the week, obviously, because we're doing a webinar on Monday evening. So we'll do a morning or evening call, probably about Thursday or Friday. I'll confirm an update with the calendar shortly. So looking into ahead of this week, so we know that obviously last week wasn't the best week in the community, but we're still not running in profit in a loss for the month. We're around break even. Haven't had 10% in January profit in January. We've been a bit up and down in February, as the market hasn't really been the best for our situation, our sort of trading. And we're waiting for these big swing trades that I can see coming, which are fairly close now, which I'm going to run over. A few signs on Friday that possibly we might be ready to start entering these. So be watching carefully on Friday. But also, as you are now very well aware, that we do have the intraday strategy going to be introduced next week. So originally, I've mentioned this a couple of times, we had this sort of coming in January, February. It's had a bit more testing. Last week, as I said, we're going to start introducing it this week. It's probably going to be something I was going to introduce in March, but we're just coming into that time now. So next week, what we're going to see is start introducing those trades. So they're literally trades that we may be in for a couple of hours, or but basically should normally be closed out within the day. So really nice short stop losses and nice big rewards, like I showed you a couple of examples last week. So we're going to start introducing those. Those trades are ideal when there's volatility in the market. So probably be towards the mid part and end of the week, maybe, as if the market is quiet to begin with at the start of the week, it won't really have the momentum to get the trades going. So we'll have a look and see how the market starts. So let's just talk about while we're talking about volatility and momentum, let's see what fundamentals there's going to be in the market next week. So there isn't actually a lot of fundamentals, so it could be quite more of a technical week, as things play out to technical analysis quite nicely, where there isn't fundamentals, but the fundamentals obviously do get the market moving. But you can see how on weeks when there's not an awful lot of fundamentals, how price respects the technicals quite well. Obviously, with fundamentals, when it gives it really gets the market moving. Sometimes the market doesn't respect technical analysis as much and can break through resistance and so on. But technically, when there's a more of a quieter week, we can see that the price sort of respects the technical analysis a little bit more. So Sunday evening, quite strange. We've got retail sales from New Zealand dollar. On Sunday evening, sort of around the market opening. Obviously, we've got to see here we've had a G20 meetings as well over the weekend, and something that we're going to have to keep an eye out on on market open. We just go to news here on Forex Factory. Is there's been more reports of the coronavirus. In China, it's getting worse. Mainland China, you can just see here at the top of this, mainland China has had 648 new confirmed cases of the coronavirus infection on Saturday. So this could affect the market on market open, as it seems like the situation is actually getting worse and not getting any better. So as the number, that brings the total number confirmed up to 76,000, nearly 77,000. So you can see it's getting worse. So that has been news over the weekend, which can affect the market. Now, we know that this is affecting the market by things like gold being a safe haven, which we'll get to shortly. and so on. Even the US dollar, a bit of a safe haven here as well, has seen a bullish move on this over the last couple of weeks. So we'll get to that shortly. But yeah, we need to watch the market open and see how the market reacts and see if it's going to react to this case of things getting a bit worse over in China. So we have got the New Zealand dollar retail sales out, which we all know retail sales are fairly important to any economy. Gives a good insight on how the spending is in each country and on the retail sales. Monday, fairly quiet, some Euro news. It's actually a Japanese bank holiday. Tuesday, again, fairly quiet. You can see the only real high impact is some consumer confidence from the US. We have Wednesday, fairly quiet, not really much. Crude oil inventories coming out for oil, but nothing really too high impact again. Then Thursday, we got some Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar news, which may have a bit of movement on the market. But again, there's nothing really too high impact through the week. And then Friday, not really much apart from the CAD GDP. So that may have a bit of movement on CAD at the end of the week. But as I said, there's not a lot of fundamentals. So main thing we're going to be watching out for is how the market's going to open up and react to that coronavirus news getting worse in China. So let's go back to Euro USD. So as I said, we look like we may be reaching a point where we could actually start looking at taking trades now. I do think, as I've been explaining for a long time, that once we find a bottom here on Euro USD, this is going to be a long-term bottom. I think once we move away from that bottom, it's going to be somewhere we won't revisit for a long, long time, because I see a big swing trade coming. Now, if we just look here on the weekly chart, I mentioned this last week, we sort of had this massive fib on here, and price, I was explaining, could drop down and tap this 78.6% level here. So last week we were trading just above it, up around here, as you can see with the weekly candle. I was expecting price to come down and just tap into this level and at least take out this 78.6 level first, and we've done that last week. Nice little rejection at the end of the week, creating this nice pin bar, sort of shooting, not a shooting star, but a pin bar candlestick on the weekly, which is quite strong. And then if I just get rid of this Fibonacci for a moment, so you can have a clear picture here. I also explained we had this sort of, just put this on, this falling wedge formation here, which price hasn't come down to yet, which means that Euro USD could drop that little bit lower, could come down to 1.70750 or even 1.0700, which is a little bit lower, that round significant level. So I'm keeping an eye on this. However, with this sort of pin bar on the weekly, it is starting to show some signs that we may be ready to actually take a move higher on this. You can see here we're actually reacting to 1.0800 level. If I just get that on there and just get this on correctly, yeah, that's fine. So there you can see here we're just reacting off that support level there, which you can see here on the weekly is reacting support, resistance, resistance, resistance. So it is a strong, valid support. You can see that price has reacted to it quite strongly last week. So weekly pin bar there. Go down to the daily. We've had the first daily bullish candle for a while. You can see here bullish engulfing, in fact, engulfing the previous 4 candles or 3 candles. You can see we haven't had a bullish day since back in the end of January. So basically all of February so far has been bearish. We've had a little pullback, but we didn't jump into this just yet on Friday because we don't want to get too excited on a Friday afternoon when we have the biggest move of the week. But it could be a little bit too early to look at jumping in just yet. So what we can see here is we've had a weekly pin bar, we've had a daily bullish engulfing, so it shows that the bulls have stepped into the market here. 4 hour we dropped down again, and we can see here we were just in this sort of consolidation zone on most of last week, Wednesday, Thursday, just bouncing around, and then we've had this sudden break up to the upside. Now this is a nice bullish candle, it does show the intent of the bulls coming in. However, I do expect a retracement on this before moving up higher. So what we can look at is price coming back down into this sort of region here. You can see here we've got this level of support, this area of support. So we just clearly broke straight through this. So this was sort of acting, if I just pull this back down, we hadn't quite made it, but you can see here we had support, came back, didn't reach this as resistance, but the first test of this, we've smashed straight through and broken above. Now we're looking for this to come back down into this level, show that this can hold as support, and if this can hold as support, then this could be where we find our long trade. So just looking at price coming down into this region, we're looking at around the 1.0820 to 30 region. We're looking for price to come back down into this level, and if price can come back down and hold into here, then we're going to be looking for a nice trade, and that's the long long swing trade that we're going to be looking for. So I do think that we're going to see on Europes a slight push down. Of course, the market may open a little bit higher and push up a little bit higher first. However, I am expecting to have that retracement first, and then once we retrace down, then we'll be looking for that trade back up. So looking at how things currently stand, if this was resistance here, you can see we're finding some resistance from this level over here. You can see we found resistance. So looking at price to come down and sort of retest this support region, come back down, test the 38. We'll just highlight this, the 38.2 to perhaps the 50% retracement, and obviously could come down to the 61. If we can come down and fulfill this Fibonacci into these regions, find support once more, then we're going to have a very, very nice long trade on our hands. So that is my bias, and that's what I'm looking out for. So I am looking for this to pull back down first and push down into these regions first. But from here, we're going to be looking at buy sort of orders, buy long trades is what we're going to be watching out for from down around these regions. Now, the reason that we want to wait for this to come back and make sure that and show us that it's finding support is because, as I said, there is that room to the downside on a weekly chart, and we could come down and retest last week's the support of last week. We could, on the weekly, we could come back down and test this level once again. So we want to make sure that price is ready to turn around. So we're going to let this come back first, let it show us that it can find support, and if we do find that support, then it could be time to take that long trade. So we're just keeping an eye on that and watching how this plays out and monitor it. Euro GBP, so I've been watching this one carefully as well to pull back into this region. On Friday we came back into here, had a little bit of a pin bar, then a push up and a push back down. Not quite ready just yet, it's getting a bit choppy as you can see, but I do think that again that we're in a strong buy sort of region here. On the daily, you can see here, I think I mentioned this on Sniper Sundays last week, that remember the higher the time frame, the stronger the formation or candlestick. So here we've got a double bottom formation, so this could be very, very strong, and we could push away and break up higher. But yeah, we're waiting for a bit more of a better pullback to give us the best sort of possible entry and the best risk reward. And at the moment, guys, all of these trades that I'm talking about are our standard swing trades that we normally take. Then on top of this, we'll be adding the intraday trades. So we could be looking, as we're waiting for retracements, we may enter those retracements. But this is the overall idea of where we want the market to go, or what we're expecting the market to do. So we are expecting Euro GBP to go up higher. You can see here with this Fibonacci that is created at the moment, you can see how the extension up here, the minus 61% extension, lines up beautifully with 0.8500. So if we could come back down again, as I said, into sort of this region here, where we have tapped it, but I'd like it to tap it once more and to get a bit better, a solid foundation of support. Tap into the 61.8% would be perfect. Again, risk reward would be even better because our stop loss would be just underneath or just below here, depending on what candlesticks we get. But rule of thumb is usually below the 78.6%. But we can keep it tighter if possible. And what we're looking is for this to push up to here, but then even holding this for longer term to push up even more. So watching out for that. And similar, we're looking for Euro GBP to push down into these regions. Euro to sort of have a little bit of a to be bearish as we open up, and just have a little bit of a push to the downside, and that will fulfill a beautiful Fibonacci sequence there. Euro AUD. So Euro AUD here. So let me just clear this up a little bit. So Euro AUD, what we were looking at last week was price pushing up into this region. We've had a big bearish push down here on Euro AUD, as you can see here. We had this initial push, we had a small retracement back up, and then we had a big bearish push back down again. So what we were looking for was a bit of a retracement back up, and then we were looking for a big bearish push back down. However, we have had extended Aussie dollar weakness, as we saw last week. We saw Aussie dollar gain a little bit of strength, but Aussie dollar was up and down last week. Obviously, we got caught out with it, but Aussie dollar has extended its weakness and now pushed up back into these regions. Now, this region is a strong region of resistance. That I think that this is where price is going to find resistance, and then we're going to see that next push back down and the bigger push. Obviously, looking for Aussie dollar to gain some strength and find its bottom and start the new big swing trade on Aussie dollar US dollar. So if Aussie dollar gains strength, then it's going to push Euro AUD down. So going to be watching out for this, going to keep an eye on Euro AUD. We've broken above this resistance here on the daily. As you can see, we've broken above, come back, retested the support, and now we're pushing up. We just dropped down to the 4 hour here. You can see here where we broke above this. Let me just zoom in here, guys. So you can see here where we broke above this, retested a support, 1, 2, 3, and now we pushed up to the upside. And we're now coming up into this level of resistance here. Now this level of resistance is quite important for two reasons. We've got a lower low, lower high, lower low, and if this downtrend is going to continue, this level needs to hold. So this new downtrend that we're creating here, if this is in fact going to hold and to continue down lower, then this level needs to hold. This has to create an equal lower high. Now, I just zoomed out here to show that if this does hold, then this means that we're going to go down and make a new lower low long term. So if you just look at this on the daily, we can see at how much downside potential there is. So from here, it's been a bit choppy, but all over the place. We pushed up, but as I said, if this is going to hold and stay and create a new downtrend, I'll just highlight this. This is sort of a neckline. So the left shoulder, neckline, head, neckline, count back up. The right shoulder's coming up a little bit higher. But if this is going to hold here, then this is going to push down, and then we're going to be looking to make a new lower low. Past it, break through this neckline, break down under here. Obviously, this is long term. And then we'll be looking to retest that, and then this can come down lower. So there could be a big swing trade on here should this resistance hold. So we are getting into those levels where the big trades are coming. So we're going to be watching this level very carefully. If I just zoom into here as well on the daily, nice and clear, nice clean chart, just market structure and just understanding price action is what we need here. And you can see we've just come back up and tapped this 61.8% retracement level. Now, as I said, I've marked this out as the last lower high. I'm just going to highlight this area between the 61 and 78.6% retracement. And you can see here on the 4 hour, this is the region where if we find resistance, then we could be going downtown for a long time. Look at these levels here on the Fibonacci. We've got 1.5950, 1.5800. We're trading up around 1.6400, so that's a 500-600 pip trade that we could be looking at. So watching out for this pair quite carefully. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting on Euro AUD. So I'm just going to move this Fibonacci out the way quickly and just show you this level here. So you can see 4 hour starting to find some resistance. 1 hour, going to be watching this sort of create a double top. So you're watching this fairly closely here. Yeah, and that's what we're going to be looking out for. So I'm interested in this, very interested in this one. But I do think that we're just going to test with Euro AUD. I think we're just going to play around and test this sort of region a little bit more, just around here. So I think that price is going to come up to this sort of region, tap into this level, and then from here, then we could see that price comes down. So I'm looking for price to sort of come up and tap this previous lower high, previous resistance. We do have this sort of area, 1.6500. We could see a little spike up to this side, even possibly. You can see this round figure, 1.6500 would be a nice level. It's a nice round, significant level. That price, that price likes to move to these big numbers before reacting. So obviously this is the last lower high, sitting just here. But we may see price just spike up that little bit more and hit that level, and then we could see a big push down. So watching out for that situation. Euro NZD, sort of similar situation as well. You can see here, those in the group for quite some time, we're still holding a percentage of a trade from all the way up here, hit 1,000 pips down here. Still holding this, and it looks like we could be getting ready for another leg down as well. If the New Zealand dollar can finally find some resistance, or support, I should say, for the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, and the New Zealand dollar can find some strength. So we've got some retail sales coming out on market open. I think that the retail sales could possibly push this a little bit higher, and we could see this pair test up around these regions again, a little bit like Euro AUD. I could see this coming up, and we are going to push to the downside. We see this coming up and sort of retesting these regions, possibly even taking out that level, coming up, tapping the 1.7200 figure. Again, round significant level. I can see price coming up into that region, tapping that level, and then pushing back down to the downside for a nice big swing trade. But this will be, we're obviously holding our original swing trade, but this could be another entry to trade this back down. So watching out for this. We can see here at the moment on the daily, we've had a fake out on this sort of triangle formation that's forming, or this trend line. So we've had one breakout, one push to the upside, and we faked out. However, we'll have to see. Maybe the New Zealand dollar news may start to push this down. At the moment, we've had a little bit of a bearish turn at the end of Friday, but it's too early to be looking. This 4-hour trend, high. From here, you can see this is the consolidation zone, guys, and this is where the new trend started. So this is on the 4-hour. So higher low, higher low, higher low. We do not yet know if this is the end of this trend. So what we're going to be watching, this is what you need to do on each on different time frames, is be understanding the market structure, the higher highs, the higher lows, and seeing if the trend is ending on those time frames. So here you can see we made a higher high here. We're now making a higher low. Just going to clear this out of the way to make it a bit more clearer, and I'll just clear off this trend line as well. We are retesting this trend line that we've broken out of on the daily, as you can see here. We're just going to see on the 4-hour we've broken out, and now we're retesting. So we could push back up to the upside, but we are at this level now, and if we're going to find a new trend, then we may see this just consolidate around here as well. Remember what I said before about the rocket, when it goes into the sky, it doesn't just drop, has an airborne moment, where you can see here as well. So at the end of the 4-hour push down, before a new move, we consolidate, then we break out and go up to the upside. So breakout, retest, continuation. Now we're up here, we're going to consolidate for a little while here, but we may consolidate for a little while here. But what we want to see is if the New Zealand dollar news does push us down, we're going to be looking for a retest and then a trade down. But we may push back up to the upside, retest the top of this resistance, or we may go on and make a new higher high, which we'll then have to wait and see when it's ready to make a new higher low. So we're going to be monitoring that and keeping a close eye on Euro NZD and Euro AUD. Euro CAD is a pair that we've been looking at. So let me just break this down. Let me just clear this chart off real quick. So this is a pair we broke through this weekly and daily support, major support, and we can see we haven't been this low since back in 2017. So we broke through that. As explained, we're going to keep squeezing, but this had to come back. It has to come back and retest this. But like a lot of Euro pairs, I think that this is possibly this could be the bottom of this push down for Euro CAD. And what I'm looking at, you can see here on the weekly, big pin bar on the weekly, big rejection of here. Looks like it's ready to turn. So daily, we'll look down and see what more signs we have. Daily here, we can see a bit of a morning star formation. Drop down to the 4-hour, we can see that things are starting to get a little bit choppy, but we're starting to move back up to the upside now. So higher high, higher low, higher high, could come back down and make a higher low. However, we've got some levels here to look at. 4-hour, we can see here that we've got this level where we come back sort of lower low, lower high, lower low, come back, retest to the lower high, push back down. Now I'm expecting price to come back down and retest these sort of levels, and possibly come back down a little bit lower, down to 1.4300. That round level, that round significant level. I'm expecting price to push back down and find some support, prove to us that it can find support, and then we could be looking at that long swing trade on EuroCAD as well. So we're going to be looking back down here. You can see this sort of the bottom is found here at the moment on the 4-hour. Again, if we can just look at price action, we can see we've got this sort of consolidation zone. Then we've broken out here, retested as support, and then we went boom, pushed up to the upside. Now we've hit the last lower high. Now what we want to do is see price come back down and retest this level of support once more. If we can find support here again, we could be looking for a very nice long trade here as well. And this is another big swing trade. So here going to be looking at price coming down to this level. You can see higher high, higher low. So this is the last higher low. We made a higher high, come down. If we can find support through here, I'll just highlight this little area. And this is something that the intraday strategy is going to be concentrating on as well. It gets real deep into the 1 hour, 30 minute, 15 minute time frames, and looks at structures and price action. A little bit like what we're looking at here, but on lower time frames. You can see here we come back into this level here and find support here. Then we could be looking at a nice push back up to the upside. But we need to let price come to us. We don't chase. Snipers stand back and just wait patiently. And if it comes back into this region, then we can look at taking that trade. So we're watching out for this sort of setup. But we can understand why we found resistance here because of the lower high. So waiting for price to push back down and just prove to us what it's going to do next. Rather than guess, we're going to wait, come back, let it come back here. If it shows us the signs that we want on lower time frames, as we all know, morning star formations and so on, any formations we see them, then we can be looking at taking a nice trade. Euro JPY, so this fell off quite a bit over the last kind of week or two, as it broke this daily trend line, came back, retest, pushed down. But in the last week we had a big push back up. A solid day on Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday we sort of started to find some resistance at this previous lower high. I do like this to keep pushing up higher. This big push here shows the intent of the bulls and looks like we can keep pushing higher. We come down here, lower low, lower high, lower low, testing the previous lower high here on the daily. So I do expect this to hold, but I'm expecting to come back down to this level. There's a level that we actually took a long trade a couple of weeks ago, where we took a long trade here and made profit a couple of 2-3%, I think it was, on this bullish candle here. So I'm looking for this to come back down, and we're going to be looking at possibly doing the same again. As we come back down to this level, we're going to be down at around 121. Let me just get rid of this. At 120.00. So we're looking at coming down there, and from there we can find some support. We'll ride it back up. Now, obviously, there's about 100 pips from where we are now, 121 down to 120. So we may be looking for intraday trades to ride that back down as well. But we're going to keep an eye on that and see how the market opens. Euro JPY can be affected by the coronavirus, Japanese yen and so on. So we can have to see how that opens up on market open. GBP USD continuing as ever to be quite choppy. This one is probably, pound is quite hard to read at the moment. Longer term, short term you can see some trades, but the longer term is a bit harder to see because it's so choppy. I've got a good idea that we are going to come back. Well, I do have my bias that we're going to come down to around 1.27500, possibly even 1.2500 levels, and then see a push up. And we're sort of doing that ever so slowly, but we're just doing it in a choppy fashion. Lower low, lower high, equal lower low, just breaking on below and then coming back up. However, we are making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. You can see here, it looks like we're almost ranging through this sort of level, but if you look closely, we are making lower lows, lower highs, coming down, making a lower low, lower high. So here at the moment, we've had that fake out again on the triangle formation. Bullish day on Friday, and bullish engulfing. Nice run, bullish run on Friday for the pound there, but then we ran into trouble. But we've sort of ran into trouble here, seen a push down, sort of in the middle of nowhere, no resistance. So we're just seeing that price has found some resistance here, and we started to pull back down. So I do think that this is going to continue its run. I'm going to be looking for GBP USD to possibly pull back into these regions, and then we could be looking at an intraday sort of trade back up to around this 1.300. I think longer term we could come back up and again test the outer trend line here, retest this level once again, and then we can maybe see the bigger sell-off. So keeping an eye on that. But at the moment, I do think that GBP USD could see a little push up higher. GBP JPY, similar situation here. Predicted this last week that we would, from down at these levels that we were at, that we will come back up. If I just clear this off for the moment, that we will come back up and retest these regions here. If you look at last week's Sniper Sundays, to come up and tap the monthly level of 14500. Let me just change that quickly. the yeah, to come back up and tap this level here, and possibly tap 145. We have come up, we've had that run, we've sort of had a doji candle here. We haven't tapped that 145 level just yet. We're just a couple of pips away from it, but we have taken out the previous highs here. Looking at this now, I think that we could still have that last little nudge up to the upside to fulfill this daily fib and tap that 61.8% retracement level. So I don't think it's time to sell this just yet. I do think that there could be some more downside, but we saw the Japanese yen having a push up higher on these pairs last week. But as I said, you can see here we have the 61.8% retracement level just sitting above around 145.25. So I am going to be watching that price coming up and tapping into that region first. Again, on the 4-hour chart here, we can see that we are making higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows. So we haven't finished this trend just yet, and I think that we could pop up, tap into that region, and then we may be seeing a sell-off. So we're going to be waiting and watching just to come that little bit higher. GBP AUD, similar situation. So we were looking for a long trade on this last week to come back up into this region, but it happened a couple of days afterwards, to be quite frank. So when we had here, the analysis played out, but unfortunately we got in a trade basically a day early here. We had this spike to the upside, could see that we had that potential to keep going, keep pushing up, and keep coming up into the 61.8 to 78% retracement level. However, we took a long trade here last week on this day, and then the market moved against us and took us out. Then the next day, bang, had a bullish push back up, and then we come back up into that region where I wanted this to come up to. Now we've taken out that 78.6%, nice shooting star on the daily. 4-hour, just going to get rid of this Fibonacci now just to make it a bit more clearer. 4-hour, on Friday, we started to see a bit of a push down. However, on the 4-hour, we have to remember we've got higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. Reacted off this level here, and then went back up to make a sort of equal high low, came down, liquidity grab here to get that momentum to push back up to the upside. And then we've broken through this resistance, and we could come back here now, tap this level as a level of support, and then see this have one more push to the upside just yet. We may see another little bit of a pushback on the Aussie dollar. So, however, I am just watching this very, very carefully with with GBP AUD. Like I'm watching Euro AUD as well. Mainly watching the Aussie dollar all round really. I will be watching this to see how this reacts here. At the moment, it's still bullish, so I will watch and see how it behaves. But I am actively looking for short trades, longer term. But I will be watching to see, has this got some more momentum to have another little push back up to the upside. And from here, we'll be watching very, very, very closely to see, is that trade going to come back down. Similar sort of situation with GBP NZD, which I've been keeping an eye on as well. GBP AUD and GBP NZD obviously move quite similar, just like Euro AUD and Euro NZD. And we can see here that we've come up into that region that I've had marked out. Very, very strong weekly and daily resistance area, as you can see. 1, 2, 3, now 4th or 5th time coming up into this region. I've added on this sort of trend line just coming across the top here, and you can see how prices spiked above and then closed below. So this gives us an indication that price is still struggling to break above, and we could see some downside momentum coming into this into the new week. However, again, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. We can see here that we are just coming back down to test this level. So what we can expect here on the 4-hour, we have had a nice evening star formation, 1, 2, 3, reversal sign. However, we would expect price to sort of come back up and retest these regions first to confirm it as a level of resistance before looking at taking a short trade. So what we're looking at now is price to either from these regions find some support, pull back, make a sort of Fibonacci retracement. We could pull back into these regions. We'll be watching these different levels to see how it reacts. But we're looking for price to pull back. Let's see, we're going to make a double top. We obviously can still extend up higher, or we could have a Fibonacci retracement. But what we're watching is for price to show us what it wants to do next. We know that this is a level of support here, so I'm expected to find some support. Again, could even be a nice little intraday long trade just up, back up. We'll keep an eye out for that. But on market open, we'll see what this does. This may extend. Obviously, Friday's push down lower, could extend a little bit lower before we see that push back up. However, we're looking at this sort of scenario being a possibility, and watching this quite carefully. I do think GBP AUD and GBP NZD long-term bias is short, so we're looking for short opportunities next week. But I said there may be that may be towards the end of the week. We will be looking at how this acts at the start and seeing there's going to be a push up higher on these. USD CAD. So USD CAD was quite an interesting one last week. If I just clear this all off actually and just go to the daily chart, there we go. We can see here on the daily chart how choppy this was. Actually, let me just go to the weekly just so I can just show you the trend line on this at the moment. I have to zoom right out for this, I believe. You can see the trend line all the way from back here coming across. You can see we're finding that resistance on a strong weekly trend line. Daily, so we pushed off this. I was expecting price to push back up and retest possibly the trend line or retest this area. You see on the daily, we've got this area of resistance. You see these candles here, these spikes to the upside, resistance, 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 resistance. Looking for price to come back up and sort of tap into that level before making a push to the downside. But what we can see here last week is we had a really choppy week on USD CAD. Bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, just to sort of taking each other out each day, up, down, up, down. And if I just clear this off to make it a bit more clearer, you can just see that we've sort of had, as I said, had a little bit of a choppy week on USD CAD. Now we extend this across here. You can see here that we've had this level of support here, came back down, broke up, acted as resistance, pushed down. We did have this acting as a level of support here. See previous resistance, support, came back up, retested resistance, came back down, broke a little bit below, back up resistance. And we are, however, again making lows, just quietly making lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows. So at the moment it is a tricky one. It's because it's so choppy on the daily. However, again, we've just taken out the previous low here, and just like we have done previously, I'm expected to see a little bit of a run back up to the upside here. And from here, I'll be looking then at taking short. So again, might see an intraday trade up. But what longer term, what I'm looking at is a push back down on USD CAD. Obviously, USD CAD going down, we'll see Aussie dollar push, help see the Aussie dollar pushing up. But what I'm expecting is to see this push, maybe short term, start of the week, see another push back up with this. We may come back up and sort of retest these Fibonacci levels here. 50, maybe come up and tap this 61.8% again. Where we, well, not again, but come up and tap to 61.8%. Then we could see a sell-off. So looking at this sort of situation, USD CAD, USD JPY, tap that 112 region that I explained last week. We're seeing a bit of resistance there. So you can see here on the daily, we've broken out of that resistant daily trend line. So we are broken above that trend line, which is important to understand. So we could continue pushing up higher here. So watching this carefully. At the moment, there's nothing for us just yet. I think it's too early to be looking at a short trade around 120. But however, we will keep an eye on this during the week. We'll drop down to the 4-hour here. You can see here we've had a very strong bullish push. We have to expect a retracement. At the moment, we're making sort of lower lows and not lower lows, but we're making a new higher low. So we made a higher high here, coming down. We're sort of finding support around this region. So we'll monitor this price action around here. Now, Aussie dollar, US dollar. So these are the pairs we've been watching for quite some time. Now, if I just clear this off quickly, we can see here, is it time now for Aussie dollar to find its support and start turning around? We go to the weekly chart here. You can see now we've taken out all previous weekly candles. You can even see here we've got a little bit of a counter trend here coming across that we've failed to break below. So watching this one carefully. Weekly seeing a bit of a spike up there at the end of the week. Daily, bit of a pin bar. Could we be about to form a morning star formation? 4-hour, we're going to be watching this one very, very carefully coming into the new week. So you've seen a bit morning star formation here. 1, 2, 3. Bullish engulfing, and then continued out with a nice little bullish push towards the end of Friday. Now, again, like other US dollar pairs, I'm going to get to this in a minute as well when I look at the dollar index, like Euro USD. If we're going to see this push up, I am expecting a push back down first. Similar situation, lower high here. You can see prices forming some resistance, spikes to the upside here, and now I can expect this to push back down. Immediate levels will be looking around 0.6610. but we may come down a little bit lower, could even come back down to 0.6600 once more. We're going to be watching this come back down to these regions. If this does can find some support here, then this could possibly be where we find the bottom of Aussie dollar and we start trading this thing back up, taking a trade and holding on to this long term. So expecting possible big movements on market open because of news that may have been happening over the weekend. So we'll have to keep an eye on this and see what happens. But yeah, overall, I'm expecting to see a turn of events for Aussie dollar coming up now. It's been coming for a few weeks, hasn't happened just yet. I saw some signs of it happening earlier in the week and it didn't happen. So it's just we have to be patient with this one. But I do see this coming and starting to turn around. So we'll be looking at this coming and retracing, tapping these sort of Fibonacci retracement levels as well. And we'll be watching this one very, very carefully. Likewise with Aussie dollar CAD. If I just go to here, we can see here, weekly Aussie dollar CAD, we completely took out the previous lows. So what we were looking at last week on the daily chart was we did have this daily move here where we had this push up and then push down. Then we tried to push up again, and then we took a trade because this was the last sort of the last chance saloon, as you could say, for the bulls with this up move. If this was going to move up from here, this had to be the level because of price action, because of structure. We had a higher high here on the daily, a higher low. Wasn't able to make a higher high yet. Coming back down, often we can see a double bottom be created here around a 78% retracement, and then we see a push up. But then, as you can understand now, is that once we broke past this previous level here, see how quickly it dropped down. That's why you have your stop loss, and that's why we get out the market, because this is the last level possible for this uptrend. So what I mean is, we've now, from here, we've created a new uptrend. You can see here a morning star formation. We've had 2-3 bullish days. We pulled back, had a retracement, and then we had as we try to push up, we've had a push back down to retest this level. If this level doesn't stand, this bullish trend, this new bullish trend or possible new bullish trend is no longer valid. So that's why once this breaks, you don't want to be in the market. That's why you get out the market, and then you can see the bears take over, because anyone in long position says, okay, this has broken this level now, it's time to get out the market. I don't want to be in it, because I know that with market structure, I know that because price has broken below this level, I no longer want to be in this trade, because it now means that this uptrend that we saw, this big push up here, this big push up, and then a retracement, and then where we're expecting the next push up, but we weren't able to get it. Okay, so we might just be making a double bottom, and from here we know we're looking for Aussie dollar strength, but we didn't get it, so we had to see that move up. When that move doesn't happen and you break below the last higher low, that means that this is all now invalid. So you do not want to be in the market once it breaks that last higher low. But these high low levels here are great for risk reward, because should this level hold, then the risk reward, because your stop loss has to be just a little bit below this level, because once it goes below this level, as I said, then you don't want to be in the market. But this is literally catching from the bottom should the market move up, and then the risk reward is great, is amazing. But as I said, it's worth that risk. It's worth risking that 1%, because if this was going to find support here, this was going to be a massive swing trade. So for the sake of 1%, it was worth it, because the risk reward was going to be huge. Now, as I said, for learning purposes, what I'm trying to explain here is, you can see here, once this last higher low was broken, that's why there's such a fast push to the downside, because just like us, anyone who was long wants to be out of that trade, so we get out, and then the bears just step in, because there's no buyers in the market anymore. So then the bears step in and just push this down, 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 and now we're just getting to a point where possibly we might be finding a new support. Daily here, you can see that we're finding we found this support here. With this daily pin bar. 4 hour, we can see this really nice morning star formation. So let's just zoom in here. You can see this nice morning star formation, 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to be keeping a closer eye on this coming into next week to see, is this going to be where we can turn around. So monitoring this, again, you saw at the start there, I just had this sort of area sort of highlighted. Again, going to be watching this to see how this reacts around this region. remember, you can expect price to sort of consolidate before breaking out and making a new move. So we can see here support, support, broke through, resistance, 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 new support. Can expect price to come up, test this resistance, maybe come back down, retest this area of support. I want price to come back down, prove to us that this is going to be a level of support, and then we can look at taking a trade. Similar situation as well with NZD USD. We've had a big push down. We can see here, just at the moment, we can see I'm expecting to see a push back down and then a push up. So what we can see here, if I just go clear this all out and go back to the start once again, on the daily, we've had a big push down. We've now tapped this 0.6300 level. We've just come very close to it. Daily pin bar as well. Weekly, a bit of a spike on the bottom of that candle. 4 hour is showing a bit of bullishness with the bulls just stepping in there at the end of the day. So again, similar situation. See here, lower low, lower high, lower low. We're coming back up to that sort of lower high region there. So price is finding some resistance. Watching this to push back down. We'll be watching price all around these regions here. See if it can push down, find support. If it finds support, then this may be where Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar finally find their strength to start pushing up higher. NZD CAD is a similar one. Obviously, we're looking at Aussie dollar CAD, so NZD CAD is on the cards as well. NZD CAD broken the trend, pushed all the way down, tapped the 78.6% retracement level on the daily chart. Now we're going to be watching this very carefully. We can see here pin bar formation on the pin bar candle on the daily, 4 hour, finding some bullishness up to the upside. So we're going to be watching this all around this area to see how this reacts over the coming days as well. So this is the area we're going to be highlighting and watching. Now looking at gold is extending that push up. We're very near to that 61 point, the minus 27% Fibonacci. So we're going to be watching that. We can probably see traders maybe take some profit around these levels. We'll have to see how the market is going to open up with the news over the weekend. But here we might see some profit taking, and this might be where we see a pullback on gold. However, we have to see current situations. Don't want to be looking at shorting gold too much long term right now, but we're going to keep an eye on this. I can possibly see a retracement from these levels. As we said, as explained, we can see some profit taken on gold. 1650, that round psychological level, we're very close. We could pull back down to around the 1600 levels, where we could then see another renewed push back up. We will have to see. But gold is a volatile one, with the current situation. We'll have to see how the market opens with that one. But as explained, we are getting to that sort of Fibonacci region there. We could even still push back up into 1700. So we're going to keep this a close eye on this one coming into next week. And oil is one. Let's have a look. Let me just zoom out on here. So oil was the example I showed you of the sort of intraday. I mentioned, I think Wednesday or Thursday, that I was expecting to see oil find some resistance here and push back down. Highlighted out this level to as a possible target. But as I showed you on as an example of the intraday, was where there was like a 2-3% trade, just finding some support here. That little move from here up into that region where I wanted the price to go to find resistance, and then so that's basically using my overall bias, but also using the intraday along with it. So my bias was that price would come up and tap this level and then see a push down. I could see price was finding some support here, and we still had bullish strength. So that's what the intraday trades will be taking, these short little trades in between our overall bias and pairs. So my bias was to find some resistance here and have a push down. And as price was here on Thursday, that's where, as I said, that example of an intraday trade came. We can see that little push up first. So we take advantage of both moves of the market, that taking advantage of the push up, and then also taking advantage of the push down. Now here we can see that, yeah, this is a daily resistance level. So obviously it looks like oil could take off here, but then obviously we have to understand that price has to make higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and higher lows. Now what better place for price to make a higher high and then to make a higher low is at previous resistance. It's not going to just turn around mid-air. So we have is searching for resistance. So we broke out of this resistance here. So once this broke out, there's no real resistance. A little bit of resistance here, but we've got the main daily lower high resistance here on the daily chart. Remember, the higher time frames are more important than the lower time frames. So price can just break through the lower time frame resistance, like this lower time frame 4-hour resistance here. So as the price broke out of here, it's searching for, broke out here, searching for a new resistance, found it here. So that's obviously going to be the best place where it will turn and then make a new higher low. However, at the moment, you can see here we've sort of created this 4-hour morning star formation, but I think that this can still go down a little bit lower for a bigger retracement before making the next move up, back up to the upside. So we could even come back down to sort of this level here, this level of resistance, as you can see here, around the $52 region. So just looking on the lower time frames on the 1 hour, I'll be watching this. I think we could still see oil have a little bit of a pullback here, maybe tap this 61.8% retracement level and then see this push down. You can actually see here, look at that $52 level is, yeah, let me just get that exactly as well. The $52 region. Lines up perfectly with this Fibonacci extension, minus 27%. So what we could likely see on oil, but again, remember the coronavirus situation can affect this, and this could send oil back down as well. But what we could see is price just come up, tap into this sort of region here. You can see we're already finding some resistance. Tap up into this region, and then we can see a little push back down into that level. And from there, then we could keep an eye on this pair again and see, can it find resistance or support here, and then we could be looking at the bigger trade back up if it's going to continue. But remember, daily time frame, if we just go back out to the daily, remember this has had a massive push down and it needed a retracement and it needed a bit of a breather. So it's had that little bit of a breather now, so it could continue to push down lower. But as I said, at the moment we have just retested the last lower high here on the daily. So on the higher time frames, it is still in a downtrend. 4 hour, we are in a bullish trend here, but on the 1 hour time frame at the moment, we are in a bearish trend. Low lows, lower highs, low lows, lower highs. So if we can find resistance here, we may continue down lower into this sort of region, at that $52 level, which you can see lines up perfectly. So last thing we're going to look at is the US dollar index. And obviously we can see that we had a sell-off on the US dollar on Friday, but I wouldn't get too excited just yet, and this is why we didn't jump at the market. So obviously we can see here we've made a double top here, weekly time frame. So we broke out. It looks like now here on the weekly we've created a fake out, put the fear into the market, driving all US dollar pairs lower, lower, lower. People thinking they don't know when this is going to end. And now the market's done a sudden turnaround on Friday, which is what we've been expecting for quite some time. Now we could see the US dollar from here push all the way back down, and this would mean that Euro USD pushes all the way back up, Aussie dollar US dollar. So we can see if we can get this this US dollar weakness follows through, we could see the US dollar pushing down all the way back down to maybe this 96.50 region. So what we're looking at on the daily is, yes, we've had that first initial push down, that daily bearish engulfing, shows that the bears are stepping into the market. We've created that double top here as well. But what we want to do is we want to see that the market is going, in fact, to reject it. Now, remember, we are on a very, very strong bull trend here for the last couple of weeks, as we can see. We had this big push up all the way up, and it's only really the first time we've had a bearish engulfing candle or a bearish push back down like this. So what we need to do is watch the price come back up. Could possibly retest this daily resistance level here. Price push back up. If we see price find resistance here on early next week, see price push back up into this region. We want to find resistance because obviously the bulls takeover could push this higher. But if we see this push back up, this is why we're looking at Fibonacci retracements on many of the US dollar pairs like Aussie dollar and Euro US dollar. If we see this pull back up into this region, see it lines up nicely there with a 61.8% retracement level as well. So two confluences there for resistance. and then we could see a push down. And I think if we do see that, if we likewise if we see Euro USD push down into those regions, same with Aussie dollar, and then we take those trades, long trades, and then we do see a push down here on the US dollar, I think it's going to be swing trades that we're going to be holding for quite some time. So the market's been a little bit out the last couple of weeks and not really lining up for us, but everything's sort of coming together. You can see it's all merging together now and all in sync. So we're looking to have a good week and finally get those swing trades going, which have been sort of priming for weeks and weeks and weeks, but haven't been ready yet. So yeah, so last week of the month, I'm going to end it on a high, going to finish in profit as always, and yeah, just looking forward to a good week. But I'm really looking forward to getting the intraday trades out for you guys as well. So have a great evening, guys. I'll see you on market open. We'll see how the market opens and what happens. And then obviously we'll be catching up all day Monday, and then Monday evening we have the webinar. So lots coming. So have a great evening, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you.